In this video, we are going to talk about simplifying fractions. So first we'll start with if we have a fraction such as 12/18ths, and we are being asked to simplify. So to simplify a fraction, what we first have to do is find the GCF, or the greatest common factor. So first we find the greatest common factor, and to do that we have to find the factors of 12 and 18. So we ask ourselves, what do we know we have to multiply together to get to 12? Well, I know 1 and 12. 1 times 12 is 12. I know 2 times 6 is 12. And I also know that 3 times 4 is 12. And I know there are no other factors because we start with 1. We know 1 times 12. 2 times 6. 3 times 4. There is nothing else we can ask ourselves. If you multiply it together, do you get 12? Because we know 5 doesn't. And that would be what would be in between. Now we talk about 18. What do we know when we multiply it together? Gives you 18. Well, I'm going to start with 1. And I know that 1 times 18 gives me 18. Let's go to 2. I know 2 times 9 gives me 18. I know that 3 times 6 gives me 18. And I know 4 doesn't go into 18, and neither does 5. And then I'm back at 6. So I know I have all the factors. Now I'm going to circle the greatest one that they share, which is 6. Now that I have the greatest common factor, I'm going to go back up to my fraction, and I will divide my numerator and my denominator by my greatest common factor. Now, I ask myself, 12 divided by 6 gives me what? Or I can do reverse multiplication. What number times 6 will give me 12? And I know that that is 2. Then I ask myself, 18 divided by 6 is what? Or what times 6 gives me 18? And that answer is 3. So that is how you simplify a fraction like this. And you use the greatest common factor. Now we're going to talk about how to go from an improper fraction to a mixed number. And an improper fraction is when your numerator is greater than your denominator. So say we had 10/4. Our numerator is 10, and that's greater than our denominator. So we have to put our improper fraction as a mixed number. So one way that we can do this is we can draw it out. I can draw a couple holes and split it into fourths. Now I just shade in my fourths. I have 1, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I look at how many holes are shaded in and what's left over. So I have 2 holes right here, and then I have 2 fourths left over. That's one way you could do it. Another way is, you know that you start with 10/4, and you know that 1 hole is 4/4, so you can just start subtracting out holes. You're left with 6/4. Oh, you have another hole in there, so you take another 4/4 away, and you're left with 2/4. So here's 1 hole plus 1 hole, and then we've got our 2/4. So we're left with 2 holes and 2/4. Now the other final way that I could do this is I could use long division. I could put 10 on the inside and divide it by 4. How many times does 4 go into 10, or what times 4 gets me close to at 10? 4 times 2. 4 times 2 is 8. When I subtract it, I'm left with 2. And I bring my 2 up, put it in my numerator, and I take my 4 and put it in my denominator. So I have 2 and 2/4. Now if I were to simplify it like I talked about earlier in the video to my 2/4, I would end up with 2 and 1/2, and that is the completely simplified answer. So these are 3 different ways that you're able to go from an improper fraction to a mixed number. It just depends on what works for you. You might like the drawing better, you might like just subtracting out the wholes, or you may like the long division. It's whatever works for you.